An evening that seemed like routine entertainment in Hollywood suddenly turned into a global focal point. When the legendary Tom Hanks appeared on the stage of Jimmy Kimmel Live, no one expected the conversation to quickly escalate into a tense confrontation. A series of off-topic questions and tasteless jokes from Jimmy Kimmel pushed Hanks's patience to its limits. The climax was the presentation of a cheap cowboy hat, a blatant symbol of disrespect. Tom Hanks, with the dignity of a true artist, firmly refused to become a source of amusement, walking off decisively, leaving a stunned Jimmy Kimmel and an entertainment industry in upheaval. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. The stage lights blazed, music surged dramatically. Jimmy Kimmel stepped out, beaming, waving to the audience, and proclaiming boldly, "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a very special guest, a cinematic icon, a living legend, the man everyone loves. Please welcome Tom Hanks." The applause erupted as Tom Hanks appeared. He walked calmly, with a warm smile but a hint of contemplation in his eyes. He shook Jimmy's hand, a firm, decisive grip. Hanks sat down, his posture slightly rigid. Jimmy began, "Mr. Hanks, Darkness and Light is a haunting and authentic work. What inspired you to take on this project, a story that seems heavier than your recent roles?" Hanks leaned forward slightly, his voice warm and steady. "I believe in the power of honest stories, Jimmy. Darkness and Light isn't just a film, it's a message about resilience, about standing firm in adversity, in a world where truth is sometimes forgotten." We poured our hearts into telling this story as authentically as possible. As Hanks spoke passionately, Jimmy abruptly interrupted, shattering the emotional flow. Great, Hanks." Jimmy clapped. "Yes, a powerful message. But speaking of powerful, you seem to stay in great shape at this age, don't you? What's your secret? Or are you still training for your Iceman role in Polar Express to keep warm in winter?" Jimmy quipped, his eyes twinkling mischievously, awaiting laughter. Hank's smile briefly froze. He looked at Jimmy for a second, his gaze full of puzzlement, then nodded lightly, not responding directly. The discord between the two men, their purposes misaligned, had officially emerged, foreshadowing an impending clash. Jimmy Kimmel seemed oblivious to Tom Hanks's subtle discomfort. With a radiant smile and the overconfidence of a star host, he continued steering the conversation away from Darkness and Light, delving deeper into personal entertainment anecdotes, even touching on stories Hanks likely wished to leave behind. "Come on, Hanks," Jimmy said, his tone a mix of humor and teasing. "Let's go back to your glory days in Hollywood. I heard you had a truly memorable role in the TV show Bosom Buddies, right? That scene where you had to dress as a woman to get a cheap apartment in Manhattan. Oh man, I still remember that scene clearly. It was hilarious. Do you still recall how it felt to wear that dress?" Jimmy burst into loud laughter, slapping his thigh, encouraging the audience to join in. Tom Hanks gave a strained smile. A wrinkle appeared on his forehead, between his brows. "Well, Jimmy," he replied slowly, his voice lowering, tinged with restraint. "That was 40 years ago. A memorable moment, sure. But those were the early days when I was young, eager to learn, and seizing every chance to stand in front of a camera. Back then I took on anything to survive in this craft." He paused, his gaze fixed on Jimmy, as if issuing a reminder. "But now, I think we should focus on the present. I'm here to talk about Darkness and Light, a work that demands seriousness and focus. A story I believe can touch millions of hearts, not with cheap laughs, but with real values." Jimmy Kimmel completely ignored the hint, his grin still wide. He rudely cut Hanks off. "But it's still a comedic masterpiece, isn't it?" Jimmy said, his tone challenging. "It made your name in its own way. Our audience would love to hear more about those unique experiences. Or maybe even reenact a classic line. Just one line, Hanks, please." Jimmy clapped, urging the audience, whose cheers and laughter roared, pressuring Hanks. Tom Hanks's eyes now held no warmth. The forced smile vanished entirely, replaced by a cold, almost expressionless face. He stared at Jimmy, silent, but his gaze was like a sharp blade, piercing his counterpart. It was a wordless warning, an invisible wall rising between them. Jimmy Kimmel felt the pressure of that look, but was too caught up in the audience's laughter to stop. Backstage, Rita Wilson, Tom Hanks's wife, stood upright. Worry etched her face. She shook her head slightly, then subtly signaled a nearby producer. She blinked and pointed toward Hanks, as if conveying, "He's uncomfortable. Stop this." However, the producer merely shrugged, flashing a calculated smile. He leaned down to whisper to a colleague, "Keep the cameras rolling. Hanks is reacting. The audience loves this. This is gold for viral content, an explosive moment to boost ratings. Don't stop." To them, Tom Hanks wasn't an artist to be respected but a product to be exploited for commercial gain. Tom Hanks maintained that icy stare. He took a deep, nearly inaudible breath, then exhaled slowly. His calmness now felt terrifying, a stillness before the storm. The studio atmosphere grew heavy, stifling. Jimmy Kimmel still believed he had full control, that Hanks would eventually relent to preserve his nice guy image. The smug smile lingered on Jimmy's lips as he decided to take things to a new level, a stunt he was sure would go viral on social media. Jimmy said, clapping sharply, his voice brimming with excitement. He reached under the desk, where a prop had been prepared. With a dramatic flourish, like a magician building to a grand finale, Jimmy pulled out a tattered, cheap-looking cowboy hat, clearly a low-budget prop from some comedy skit. The hat held no historical or symbolic connection to Hanks's illustrious career, but was obviously meant as a mocking jab, undermining the upright cowboy image. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jimmy announced proudly, holding the hat high toward Tom Hanks, "I have a small but meaningful gift for Mr. Hanks. Look at this, the legendary cowboy hat. I'm sure he'll want to wear it." He extended the hat toward Hanks, grinning broadly, posing for a memorable photo. "Mr. Hanks, please, just a quick picture. The fans will love it. The legendary cowboy look. It'll go viral, guaranteed to dominate every social media platform instantly." Jimmy smirked, not hiding his commercial intent or disregard for artistic value. The studio atmosphere abruptly shifted, as if an invisible wall had crumbled. The audience's laughter faded, then stopped, replaced by a heavy, almost suffocating silence. All eyes, from the audience seats to the crew holding their breath backstage, turned to Tom Hanks, awaiting his response. Tom Hanks didn't move. He sat upright, shoulders broad, hands clenched into fists on his knees. The forced smile was gone, replaced by a chillingly cold expression, like a stone carved from resolve. His eyes froze, locked on Jimmy, deep and filled with profound disappointment. "Jimmy," Hanks said, his usually warm voice now carrying a chilling gravity, each syllable heavy, resonating through the silent studio. "I came here to talk about Darkness and Light, a film that my entire team and I spent years, months, pouring sweat and tears into creating. A work about integrity, about standing firm against pretense, about defending what you believe in a world full of vanity and lies." He glanced at the hat in Jimmy's hand, then fixed Jimmy with a look of utter disdain. "I didn't come here to play the fool. I didn't come here to wear this ridiculous hat for cute social media photos. I'm not your puppet, Jimmy, and I'm certainly not a product for you to exploit to boost your ratings, to serve your petty commercial goals." He emphasized his words with a tone of biting sarcasm, outrage, and deep disappointment. The studio fell utterly silent. Jimmy still held the hat, his forced smile cracking, his face paling from the public rebuke on his own stage. He hadn't expected Tom Hanks to react so fiercely, so openly, dismantling the charade he'd carefully constructed. In a flustered panic, Jimmy tried to salvage the situation with a forced laugh, his voice trembling. "Oh, come on, Hanks," he stammered. "You're too serious. It's just a bit of fun. This is entertainment TV. We need to create memorable moments, laughs for the audience." He hastily tossed the hat onto the desk, as if erasing evidence of the offense, trying to pass it off as a harmless joke, but Tom Hanks didn't let it slide. He leaned forward slowly, hands still clenched on his knees, his gaze sharp as a blade, never leaving Jimmy. "Entertainment?" he repeated, his low voice echoing through the studio, laced with contempt and disappointment. "You call this entertainment? I've dedicated over 40 years of my life to the film industry," Hanks continued, his voice now carrying a commanding presence, not from arrogance, but from stating an undeniable truth. I've worked with the greatest directors, with scripts that move hearts, with stories that have shaped generations of audiences. I've learned that true entertainment comes from authenticity, from meaningful stories, from roles that make people reflect, from messages that stir the soul. Tom Hanks looked directly into the camera again, his eyes filled with deep disappointment. Not from cheap stunts, fabricated stories for clicks, or turning an artist into a puppet just to boost your show's ratings. This isn't entertainment, Jimmy. This is degradation. Degrading yourself, degrading the craft you're in, and degrading the people watching us, who deserve more respect than this. Hanks's words were powerful, brutally honest, striking at the core of a modern entertainment industry chasing trends, forgetting its fundamental values. The audience reacted intensely. Some clapped thunderously, shouting his name, admiring his courage and integrity. Others were confused, or even embarrassed for Jimmy, but most felt the weight of his words and his disappointment. Whispers, applause, and cheers formed a chaotic wave of sound, engulfing the studio, signaling that things had spiraled out of control. The atmosphere didn't settle. Jimmy's face flushed, the smug smile gone. He leapt from his chair, his posture aggressive, a trembling finger pointing at Tom Hanks, as if trying to banish an intruder. "Hey, Hanks!" Jimmy snapped, his voice high-pitched, shrill with anger and confusion, losing all trace of a professional host's composure. "You're on my stage. This is my show. We're an entertainment program. We have to serve the audience. We do what it takes to keep viewers hooked. Who do you think you are, saying that on national TV? This is live," Jimmy nearly shouted, his eyes flashing with fury and a hint of panic as he realized the situation was beyond his control. The studio noise erupted into true chaos. Boos, applause, and cheers for Hanks mixed with whispers and chatter. Some audience members stood, filming the dramatic moment on their phones. Jimmy Kimmel tried waving to calm the crowd, but it was futile. He was utterly disoriented, his eyes darting between Hanks and the chaotic crowd, as if seeking invisible support. In response to Jimmy's anger and panic, Tom Hanks remained eerily calm. He stood slowly, his tall, dignified presence exuding absolute control, a stark contrast to Jimmy's unraveling. Hanks didn't rush. He stepped toward the interview desk, closing the distance with Jimmy, nearly face to face. "Your stage, Jimmy," Hanks repeated, his warm voice now laced with biting sarcasm, making Jimmy's words sound pathetic. "I didn't come here to dance for you or to be a viral clip for your channel, a cheap, pointless distraction. I came here because I believe in the story of the film I poured my heart into, a story I believe can touch millions of hearts, bring real value." He locked eyes with Jimmy, his gaze razor-sharp, unwavering. "And I believe the audience, who took their time to watch us, deserves to hear the truth. To be respected. They deserve a valuable interview, not a pathetic performance." Hanks gestured firmly toward the audience. "They didn't come here to see a legend turned into a clown for the amusement of sensation-hungry people who care only about the surface, not the core of art." He turned back to Jimmy, his eyes full of contempt. "You've turned this show into a circus, Jimmy, a cheap circus." Hank's declaration wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a battle cry, a blunt condemnation of the entertainment industry's decline, which Jimmy represented. The cheers and applause from Hank's supporters grew louder, drowning out all other noise. Chants of Tom Hanks echoed through the studio. Backstage, the show's producers were in full panic. They signaled security to prepare to intervene while frantically calling superiors. The director, pale-faced, motioned to cut to commercial, but it was too late. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every moment, every expression on Jimmy's face. Jimmy, in a fit of utter confusion and uncontrollable anger, pointed at Hanks again, nearly screaming in defiance and rage. "If you don't want to play by our rules, if you don't want to do what we ask to keep the audience, then you can leave right now. We won't keep you here. This is my show, and I call the shots." Tom Hanks looked at Jimmy for a long moment, his eyes both saddened by the disrespect from a colleague and resolute in his final decision. His terrifying calmness contrasted sharply with Jimmy's frantic, baseless anger. Hanks didn't argue further. He simply nodded, decisively. "Then I'll leave," he said, his voice still warm, firm, without a trace of hesitation. It wasn't a threat but a statement, a powerful declaration, ending a farce that should never have begun. Tom Hanks didn't look back. He turned slowly but resolutely, needing no escort or assistance. Each step on the stage rang clear in the near-absolute silence, carrying undeniable weight. His towering, dignified figure radiated unyielding strength, the resolve of a man who had fulfilled his duty, who had dared to defend the core values he believed in. He offered no farewell, no glance back, leaving only a heavy silence and profound shock for everyone present. After a few seconds of deadly silence, the studio erupted. Cheers and applause thundered from supporters, powerful and relentless, drowning out all other noise. Hundreds stood, chanting his name, Hanks, Hanks, echoing through the studio, a respectful, admiring farewell. They weren't just clapping for a star leaving, they were applauding a hero who dared to speak truth against pretense. Jimmy Kimmel stood frozen on stage, like a living statue. His face was ashen, drained of color, sweat beaded on his forehead, and the forced smile was gone, replaced by a hollow, vacant expression. He tried to move, to flash his familiar grin, to wave helplessly at the audience, but his arms seemed stuck in midair. He mumbled something incoherent into the mic, stammering, signaling the band to play, but the music came out disjointed, lost, only adding to the chaos and awkwardness. Clearly, he was completely lost, no longer himself. Backstage, the scene was even more chaotic. The show's producers, with pale faces and cold sweat streaming down, shouted frantically into their phones, their voices laced with panic. "Cut to commercial. Cut it now. Why are the cameras still rolling?" one manager yelled. "Control the crowd. Restore order." Phones rang incessantly. Voices spoke urgently. On internal TV screens, breaking news began flooding social media. Hashtags like Tom Hanks Truth, Respect Hanks, and Kimmel Flop exploded, spreading at lightning speed, shaking the entertainment industry. Every moment of the confrontation and Tom Hanks's departure was shared thousands of times in mere seconds. Meanwhile, Tom Hanks remained astonishingly composed. He walked calmly through the backstage hallway, as if finishing an ordinary day on a film set. The harsh stage lights no longer shone. Instead, the dim glow of the corridor surrounded him. He adjusted his jacket, unshaken, without a single complaint or backward glance. Rita Wilson, his wife and a close assistant, quickly followed. Her face was full of worry, but her eyes gleamed with deep pride. She hurried to catch up, gently placing a hand on his arm. "You did the right thing, Tom," Rita whispered, her voice a mix of relief and pride. "Everyone saw it. You couldn't let them disrespect you like that." Tom Hanks gave a slight nod, his gaze distant, fixed ahead. He likely didn't need those words of affirmation. His mind seemed to have moved beyond the studio's chaos, beyond the arguments. He had achieved his purpose, defending his dignity, his art, and sending a powerful message. The peace in his eyes reflected that, a calm after the storm, the serenity of a man who had fulfilled his duty. He continued walking, his steps steady and strong toward the exit, where a different world awaited, one where true value was still honored. Just minutes after Tom Hanks decisively walked off, leaving Jimmy Kimmel stunned on stage, a media storm erupted at breakneck speed, overwhelming every news outlet and social media platform. The clip capturing the entire confrontation from Jimmy's first off-topic question to the moment Hanks rejected the hat and delivered his powerful statement spread worldwide like wildfire. Millions watching live became the first witnesses, and within moments, billions of shares, comments, and analyses flooded the internet. Hashtags like Tom Hanks Truth, Respect Hanks, and Kimmel Flop instantly dominated global trends on X, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Social media became a fiery battleground of debate, split into two clear sides, but support for Tom Hanks overwhelmingly prevailed. Beyond social media, major newspapers and top entertainment magazines immediately published front-page stories and in-depth analyses. The Hollywood Reporter ran the headline, "Tom Hanks walks off Kimmel when a legend speaks out for artistic dignity." Variety published an analysis, "The Confrontation of the Century, a clash between entertainment and values." The New York Times and The Guardian joined in, deeply analyzing the incident as a collision between two generations and philosophies of art and entertainment. They emphasized that Tom Hanks had posed a profound question to the industry about the true purpose of entertainment. Should it merely be fleeting amusement or carry meaningful human values? Talk shows, podcasts, and entertainment news channels made the topic their centerpiece. Heated debates unfolded, with film critics, media scholars, and cultural analysts participating. They dissected every detail of the interview, from body language and expressions to every line of dialogue, seeking deeper meaning. Many veteran actors and directors in the industry began voicing support for Tom Hanks, either discreetly or openly on social media or in quick interviews. They expressed empathy for the pressure artists face from entertainment shows, where artistic value is often sacrificed for sensationalism and laughs. This wasn't just an isolated incident, but the voice of a generation of artists exhausted by the erosion of core values. The media storm turned the event from a personal incident into a global debate about professional ethics and the future of entertainment. That same night, Jimmy Kimmel's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Not with encouragement, but with urgent calls from top ABC executives. Jimmy's face paled as he sat in his office, phone pressed to his ear, listening to cold, harsh reprimands. "Jimmy, what the hell just happened?" The voice of Bob Iger, CEO of ABC Television Group, roared with anger over the phone. Ratings tanked right after Hanks walked off. Social media is exploding. We're under attack from all sides. Do you know how many sponsors are calling about this? They're considering pulling contracts. The entire ad schedule could collapse. Jimmy Kimmel tried to justify himself, stammering, "Sir, I just wanted to create some drama, a viral moment. I didn't think he'd react that strongly. I was just doing my job to keep the audience engaged." Keep the audience engaged. The voice on the other end nearly shouted, "You chased one of the world's most beloved stars off your show. You insulted an icon. This isn't drama, it's a disaster. You showed serious disrespect to a guest we should have treated with the utmost regard." Jimmy Kimmel faced an emergency meeting the next morning with ABC's top executives and representatives of major sponsors. The atmosphere in the meeting room was stifling. Sponsors, with cold faces and stern attitudes, relentlessly posed tough questions about the show's ethics and the negative impact on their brand image. Many major sponsors began considering pulling out or reducing ad contracts, fearing their image would be tainted by the incident. One of the largest sponsors, a beverage conglomerate, issued an ultimatum. Either Jimmy changed his approach, or they'd withdraw all advertising. The immense pressure from the network and sponsors forced Jimmy Kimmel Live to radically overhaul its interview approach. Scripts became more cautious, less focused on gotcha jokes and personal, invasive questions about guests' private lives. Instead, they had to emphasize exploring the depth of their guests, their artistic projects, and meaningful stories. The pressure for ratings remained, but they had to find a balance between entertainment and respect, a painful lesson learned from the Tom Hanks incident. Jimmy's image as the friendly, funny host who always knows how to liven things up was severely damaged. Audiences and critics viewed him differently, questioning his sincerity. His jokes no longer landed with the same enthusiasm, often deemed forced or tactless. Fans who once loved his humor turned away, calling him unprofessional or rude. In the days following the event, Jimmy Kimmel was utterly broken. He couldn't sleep, repeatedly watching clips of the confrontation, rereading thousands of negative comments on social media. He locked himself in his office, his face gaunt, eyes ringed with dark circles. He had once prided himself on fearlessly poking fun at anyone, turning every interview into a unique and viral performance. But now, he realized the thin line between boldness and disrespect, and he had crossed it painfully. One night, Jimmy called a close industry friend, his voice hoarse, filled with despair and regret. "I messed everything up," he whispered. "I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted a memorable moment. I was wrong. I disrespected a great man. Can my career recover from this?" A heavy sigh echoed through the phone, revealing the torment and deep remorse of a man once at the peak of fame. A few days later, under network pressure, Jimmy Kimmel was forced to go on air to apologize. He began the show with a serious demeanor, unlike his usual self. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to offer my sincerest apologies to Tom Hanks, to our audience, and to anyone offended by what happened on our show a few days ago," he said, his voice somber. "That wasn't my intention. I was wrong. I went too far." However, the apology, though carefully prepared, wasn't fully accepted by the public. Many felt it was forced, lacking genuine sincerity. It only highlighted the network's calculations more than Jimmy's true remorse. The audience continued to debate, and while the pressure eased slightly, the shadow of the Tom Hanks incident lingered, a lasting scar on Jimmy Kimmel's career and his show. He had paid a steep price for his disrespect. While Jimmy Kimmel and his team grappled with the ferocious media storm, facing pressure from the network and public backlash, Tom Hanks remained entirely calm. He returned to his home, leaving behind the noise, controversy, and sizzling headlines on social media. He didn't watch news broadcasts or scroll through comments and analyses online. For him, the confrontation wasn't about seeking attention or creating a scandal. It was a necessary act, a statement about the values he had upheld his entire life. He had said what he needed to say, done what he needed to do, and he felt at peace, without a shred of regret. In the days following the incident, Tom Hanks focused on what truly mattered to him: family, books, and authentic art. One evening he sat quietly in his cozy study, the soft glow of a desk lamp illuminating an open classic book in his hands. His eyes were contemplative but unburdened by worry, instead reflecting the contentment of a man who had lived true to his conscience. Rita Wilson entered, gently placing a cup of hot tea on the table. She sat across from him, looking at him with deep affection. "You did the right thing, Tom," she said softly, her voice filled with admiration. "Sometimes, someone has to stand up and speak the truth when things get too fake." Tom Hanks looked up, offering a calm, proud smile. It was a smile that needed no words. He simply nodded, his gaze distant, as if seeing a future where truth and integrity still held a place. He was a man of the film set, of gritty roles and moving stories, not of flashing lights and cheap stunts. Now he cherished the peace in his life even more. Far from fleeting controversies, the incident on Jimmy Kimmel Live didn't diminish Tom Hanks. On the contrary, it solidified his image as a man of integrity, principle, and unwavering commitment to his values. He wasn't just a talented, two-time Oscar-winning actor, but a keeper of the flame for the core values of art and truth. The incident elevated him to a higher stature, a symbol of steadfastness and dignity in an industry often criticized as glamorous but shallow. Tom Hanks's actions became an iconic moment in television history, a powerful reminder of the fragile line between entertainment and respect, between sincerity and stunts. It was a costly lesson for producers and hosts about how to treat artists and the importance of respecting art. Many talk shows afterward adjusted their formats, becoming more cautious and substantive in interviews. The event sparked a broader debate about the nature of modern entertainment, encouraging audiences and artists to question the true purpose of what they consume and produce. Tom Hanks showed that, even in Hollywood's glitzy world, there are artists ready to stand up for their beliefs and values even under immense pressure. Tom Hanks is a living testament that true value and integrity still have a place in a world increasingly dominated by media and superficial entertainment. Through his actions, he not only protected himself, but sent a powerful reminder to Hollywood and millions of viewers worldwide: never forget the core value of art. Never trade integrity for cheap laughs or clicks. He is a true artist, a timeless icon, and that matters more than any rating or viral clip. His story reminds us that, sometimes silence and a resolute step away speak louder than 1,000 words, etching a legend's legacy in stone. The story of Tom Hanks walking off Jimmy Kimmel's show is not just a TV incident, but a sharp reflection of deeper issues in American culture today, especially in the era of digital media and the obsession with viral content. We see a Jimmy Kimmel representing an entertainment trend that prioritizes sensationalism, views, and social media engagement over core values. The act of offering a cheap cowboy hat wasn't just a joke, it was a symbol of disrespect, undermining personal and artistic dignity, turning people into tools for commercial gain. This reflects a troubling reality. In modern American life, the pressure to create impact and the allure of fleeting online fame are leading many to sacrifice truth, self-respect, and professional ethics. Tom Hanks became a symbol of integrity and courage, values that seemed to be fading. His firm refusal to become a puppet and his resolute walk-off were a bold statement. It teaches us a vital lesson for modern life, knowing when to say no when personal values are trampled. In a society where social pressures and external expectations can easily make us lose ourselves, Hanks's actions remind us that holding on to dignity, principles, and truth is essential. Sometimes, walking away from a toxic situation, even if it causes a stir or is initially misunderstood, is the strongest way to protect oneself and affirm true value. Just as Hanks defended artistic value, every individual in America must protect truth in their work, relationships, and daily life, resisting the shallow values promoted by the digital age. If Tom Hanks' story of integrity and courage has touched you, don't hesitate to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay updated on deeper analyses of Hollywood and true values. Thank you for listening to The Voice of Truth, and see you in the next video.